My microphone sounds nice when it's on. Check one. I said my nickety mice sounds nickety nice. Check two. Welcome to another edition of Beyond the Rim, the podcast. Hashtag BTR. And today, my guest is Sharon Filliar, who you can follow on Twitter at Sharon's Fitness. Sharon is a fitness guru, host of community media programs, national level bodybuilder, NPC pro, and all-around diva. Sharon, say hello to the folks out there who happen to be listening.
Hello, everyone, and Nestor, thank you so much for having me on your program today.
You're welcome, and thank you for agreeing to do this program. This is my second podcast. Sharon, before we get into... I'm excited about it too, because this is my first podcast that has nothing to do with sports. It's not talking about amateur sports, professional sports, so I'm excited about this podcast. But before we get into the podcast, on your Twitter bio that I just read, it said NPC Pro. Can you explain to the listeners out there just exactly what is the NPC?
Right. The NPC League is the National Physique Committee. This is the feeder into the IFBB Pro line, which feeds into the Olympia competition. So becoming pro at the NPC level permits you to compete at the national level to become IFBB Pro. Once you're IFBB Pro, then you're online for the Olympia. A little tough to get to the Olympia, but very doable. So I was able to get to nationals. Very, very tough road, but that's for another podcast. But I'm so happy to be here and talk about what I really have passion about, and that is senior fitness and all of that is concerned with that.
Very good. And yes, that will be a future podcast. But in today's podcast, that I'm going to entitle Living Well, Getting Old, Finances, and You. How does that sound to you, Sharon?
That sounds wonderful.
Now, the four topics that we're going to be talking over today, topic number one is going to be the physiological changes that occur with aging beginning at the age 25. Yes. Second topic, indicators of living to 100 years plus. Third topic, financial, social impact of these changes. And fourth topic, exercise, social, financial strategies to assist in the offset of said changes. So, topic number one, physiological changes that occur with aging beginning at age 25. Take it away, Sharon.
Yes. One of the things that happens is a process is called sarcopenia. Now, this differs for everyone. For some people, sarcopenia starts at age 25, for others, age 30. This is a progressive loss of skeletal muscle. It happens to everyone. As you approach 65, 70, 75, 80, there becomes a more accelerated loss of skeletal muscle. So sarcopenia, quite simply, as I explained, is a loss of skeletal muscle. So you may notice as you approach 40 or 50, you might say, oh, you know what, I can't bend down as easily as I could. Why am I aching so much more? Why is just moving around so much more difficult? This can be attributed in part to this issue of sarcopenia, and exercise can help offset that or to slow it down. You can never eliminate it, but you can slow it down greatly through exercise. So let me just kind of tell your listeners how sarcopenia kind of proliferates. For example, after 40, you need glasses, right? A lot of times it's called presbyopia. So what happens is, like, for example, the iris of the eye is actually a muscle. In your mid-40s, it loses its ability to sort of, focus in and kind of move the way it did, expand and contract. So what happens is you have to hold, a text farther away from your face in order to read it. This is due to the progressive inability of the eye to focus. This is a result of sarcopenia. Also, sometimes you hear about people, their jaw, they have like teeth grinding, and this occurs after age 40. This occurs also because of sarcopenia. The TMJ joint, the muscles of the jaw, they start to kind of deteriorate, and this causes grinding.
Now,
so
Sharon,
these are just
Sharon, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just had a question. With the teeth grinding, I always associate teeth grinding when folks are doing that while they're sleeping. So is this a phenomenon only while you're sleeping, or can some folks generally just grind their teeth throughout the day? Okay, now I'm not an expert, but from what I understand, I just like to preface this by saying I am not a medical doctor. At night, your muscles are destabilized. So what this means is that any issues that you have with laxity is going to kind of come to the fore at night because you're very relaxed. So the teeth grinding that occurs at night, which once again, as our muscles get a little bit weaker, this comes more to the fore. So when you're asleep and you're relaxed, the tendency is to grind because the muscles now have laxity in them. There are exercises, this is a topic for another show as well, there are exercises that one can do to even offset teeth grinding, and there are some dentists and orthodontists that can provide that type of information. But once again, this all goes back to this idea of sarcopenia and muscle loss. So that's why exercising, weight-bearing exercising, cardiovascular type of regimen is vitally important. It is not an option. It is a necessity. Very good. Continue, please.
Well, I'm trying to think of, going along with the sarcopenia, what's even more disturbing is this loss of leg strength. So one of the indicators, and we're going to talk about that in the next segment, of living to 100 is thigh strength. So with sarcopenia, all the muscles, the skeletal muscles, you start to lose mass and strength. So that stands to bear that as your thighs lose strength and skeletal muscle, you're more prone to fall. Now you can start shuffling more. Now this is, of course, if you're very sedentary and you don't do anything. By the time you approach 70, 75, 80, 85, all these years of incremental skeletal muscle loss are going to push you to critical mass, where all of a sudden you're not walking so well anymore. And you don't know why. It's because of sarcopenia. So this is why, when I teach my classes and, sometimes people say, oh, it's so difficult, I try to express that, this is not an option. It can be an option at 15. At 75 or 80 years old, exercise is not an option. It is essential to keep your quality of life so that you're able to be self-reliant, you're able to walk where you want, be able to move the way you want. I just found throughout teaching that keeping the legs strong, having a little bit of shoulder strength, it can help you offset losing your balance and falling. Whereas if someone falls and they have osteoporosis and sarcopenia, they might break a pelvis as opposed to someone who's in fairly good shape and might just have a black and blue mark.
So exercise, exercise is key to try to maintain wellness throughout your life. So now, in your opinion, again, we know that you are not a medical doctor and you do not profess to be one. But for all our older listeners out there, in your opinion, is there such thing as I'm too old to start to exercise now?
That's actually a very good question. And it's a very loaded question, so let me answer it this way. When you go to the doctor, there are issues that have first priority. The first couple of priorities are the heart and lung function. So irrespective of age, if you have issues with your heart, or if you have issues with your lungs, or if you have a chronic illness like cancer, diabetes, HIV, anything like that, those issues must be addressed first. So, barring any other medical issues, there is no age where one needs to stop, or to answer your question, if you're 99 to say, okay, I'm 99, I can't exercise. No, that's not true at all. However, the qualifying statement for that is, barring any other significant medical issues, you can exercise at any age.
Gotcha. Very good. Here with my guest, Sharon Filion at Sharon's Fitness. And Sharon, is this a good time to go into part two, indicators of living to 100 years plus?
I think it is.
Okay.
Why don't we do it?
Okay, we're gonna do that right. We're gonna do that right after the break. So we're gonna go into a break, and the break is gonna be one of Sharon's fun fitness tips that could be seen on the internet. So right after, so on the other side of the break, we're gonna get into indicators of living to 100 years plus. Nestor Dudley, Sharon Filion. We'll be back right after the break.
Hi, this is Sharon from Sharon's Full Body and Fitness Workout, here with my fitness tip of the day. After you finish exercising, it's a very good idea to eat something, preferably a protein-infused snack. This can be something as simple as chicken or a protein drink. Sometimes people, like myself, just like to have a banana. When you exercise, your blood sugar drops a little bit and you need to recharge. So by having something to eat after you finish exercising really helps. Now, when you have a protein snack right after you finish exercising, this actually helps the muscle rebuild stronger. So that's our tip for the day, and I'll see you next time.
Back after the break, after fun fitness tip from Sharon. Yes, tonight is Sharon Filion at Sharon Fitness, and we're going to the next segment of this podcast, the entire podcast, Living Well, Getting Old, Finances, and You. Part 2, Indicators of Living to 100 Years Plus. Take it away at Sharon's Fitness.
Thank you, Nestor. Well, before we get into the actual data and, the World Health Organization, their indicators, I'd just like to mention for your listeners a few of the indicators I have noticed, because I teach hundreds of people a week in all my classes and my senior classes, and I'd like just to mention a few of the trends that I see. One of them is people who tend to live to the age of 100 and beyond usually always eat dinner at about 2 p.m. They eat their heaviest meal in the middle of the day. So by the time, 7 or 8 o'clock comes around in the evening, they may have a small sandwich, a bowl of cereal, some yogurt or something. But their major meal generally is eaten in the middle of the day, The second one that I've noticed is this one. You may be interested in this one, Nestor. Married men and men with partners seem to live longer than gentlemen who are single.
Whoa.
Yes. From what I understand, I haven't read this personally, but a doctor actually said that there is data to back up this point. But this is something that I have noticed. I believe what happens is that when you have a partner, and you don't have to be married, you might just have a significant other. What happens is you kind of feed off of each other. So let's say you may be walking kind of funny. Your partner may say, "Oh, I think something is wrong. I think you should go to the doctor. I don't like your coloring. It looks a little off." So what happens is when you have a partner, and quote unquote outside eyes, they're going to encourage you to kind of take care of yourself a little bit more than you would on your own. Now, this is for men. For women tend to have a network of friends. Even women in their 90s and, 100, they have girlfriends, and the girlfriends tend to kind of take the place of a partner. For men do not have that same network. So what I have seen, men who are married, and I have had people in my classes who are married 70 plus years, these men tend to fare better. I always make a little joke. I can always tell a man if he is married or has a girlfriend because his clothes smell like fabric softener. And the men, single, don't no. So they don't smell like fabric softener. Okay.
Well, a little facetious, and this is facetious, a little facetious remark on my part. If you can tell the difference between a single male and a male who is married or have a significant other, how does that correlate to the grayness of their hair? So do single men? So do single men have less gray hairs?
No, it's kind of interesting. I haven't noticed that, but I will tell you, the men who are married, and this is I'm looking at people who are maybe 90 plus. They tend to be more hydrated. They have better color in their face. They eat better. Overall, they just look good. They just look better. Men who are single tend not to take, I don't know, they don't tend to I tend to see more dehydration. They're just not mentally stimulated as much. I see more of a dementia aspect. Like I said, these points that I'm mentioning right now are not backed by data, just by my own personal empirical view of the classes that I have taught.
Well, I'm going to take your view seriously, and I just got myself I just got myself some bottled water. I got to keep myself hydrated because.
No, it's true. It's amazing. It's amazing. Mm-hmm.
Okay, continue, please. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Okay, so I'm trying to think because I have some notes here. So the eating at 2 p.m. Oh, this is another thing. I don't know if this is also supported by data. People that I talk to who are close to 100, a lot of them drink red wine. Not a lot, but just a tiny bit with dinner. Once again, this is not something that I have read, something that I have observed. Another aspect is that they seem to be at peace. They seem to be happy. They have friends. They're constantly going out. They laugh a lot.
Well, I know for a fact, or at least I think I know for a fact, that red wine has a lot of antioxidants in them.
Okay, that makes sense then.
Okay,
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I'm certainly no medical mind, but I've read, so that's what I've read. So.
Okay, and the other part that they all tell me is living to 100 takes a little bit of luck. And I asked one man, and he turned 101 this past March.
Congratulations to him.
Yeah, and I said, he's a wonderful man. And I said, well, what do you mean luck? He said, well, Sharon, I was lucky enough not to be in a car accident. I was lucky enough not to hurt myself at my job. And I said, oh, luck. And he said, yeah. He said, I just happened to just be able to stay out of trouble. And I said, okay. So that's another aspect as well. Now, I think at this point I can get into what the World Health Organization has indicated as being some of the points or some of the common denominators of those living to 100. One of them is not smoking. Not smoking. Now, there are people who say, well, I know someone who smoked 3 packs a day and they live to be 182. That is the anomaly. For the most part, lung cancer and cellular changes in the lungs are attributed to some sort of smoking. If you worked in areas where there have been pollutants, but not smoking is one that the World Health Organization points out as one of the indicators of living to 100. The other one is omega-3 fatty acids. So eating fish oil, these type of things as well aids to or assists in living to 100. The other one is what many of your listeners might not know is healthy telomeres. Now, for those of you who aren't science gurus, telomeres are the protective coating, if you will, on the ends of your chromosomes. Of the DNA portion of the chromosome there. So what happens as we age, the tails of the chromosomes start to deteriorate a little bit. And this is a direct correlation of your longevity. So having healthy telomeres helps to slow down the aging process. And now more research is being done into this aspect of aging. So they found that people who live to the age of 100 tend to have less telomere, T-E-L-O-M-E-R-E, deterioration. And of course, this is something that is genetic. This is not something you can, take a supplement. Can I have a supplement for, telomere? No, this is something that's just in you. and so in terms of that, you can look to your family. How long did my great-grandparents live? How long did my grandparents live? Is there a history of cancer in the family? So what happens is after a certain age, genetics start to kick in, and this is something that in a large part we have no control over. Now, we can control, of course, what it is we do, but when you get to the cellular level and genetics, at this point, a lot of it, I guess, is kind of luck driven too. We're kind of dealt the cards that we are.
Now, what age? Mm-hmm. Quickly, what age does genetics start to kick in?
Well, genetics kicks in your entire life.
Okay,
However, I'm not a doctor, but this is from what I see. Once you get to be about 70, 75, this is when genetics, your lifestyle, probably can kick in even earlier depending on how much you abuse alcohol and tobacco. But about 70 to 75 is where you see genetics start to really kick in, in terms of cancer and things like that. Once again, it's sort of luck of the draw. Specifically, we're talking about, the telomere attrition. That's something that one cannot control. However, the good news is that things like thigh strength, which is also an indicator of living to 100, that's something that we can kind of, work on a little bit. And, as with exercise and walking and changing your eating habits and all of that. So these are just a few of the indicators. There are many, many more. The World Health Organization takes into account, malaria, tuberculosis, access to family planning, all these other things that are a global issue. But for the purposes of this podcast, we're going to kind of keep this a tighter number of indicators for living to 100. But there are probably well over 100.
Okay, very good. Continue, please.
So getting back to the eating issue, from what I have observed, so this is another observation, there is a pullback on the red meat, a pullback on that. So based on my little empirical, interviews with folks who are, 100 or 100 plus, they may have some meat, but there's a heavier base of fish, fruits, vegetables, things like that, less, fast food. Although there's one gentleman, he's 94, all he does is eat his junk food. I don't know. However, for the most part, what I find is that these people who live to 100 have a very, very strict eating regimen. They generally eat the same thing every day. So, for example, if someone has peanut butter and jelly sandwich every day at 7 p.m., that's what they do every day. They don't say, I think I'm going to try this squid that I've never tried before. They don't do that. They stick to a very, very strict eating regimen. They eat the same amount, the same time, every day in and day out. They don't vary from that. And I think it's because, once again, we talked about sarcopenia in the first segment. This extrapolates to your digestive tract as well. So this is why people have more issues with diverticulitis, reflux, because the peristalsis of the intestines is also muscle driven, right, and by nerves and everything. So this deteriorates over time. So it's harder. It's much more difficult for the body to digest foods. So it stands to reason that if you kind of introduce kind of strange things, this might cause a stress on the system. So it's much easier and safer to stay with foods that sort of work for you.
Very good. So, wow, very interesting. And that 94-year-old the 94-year-old gentleman out there
God.
who is
He
eating
eats every
who is eating the junk food, and I am not endorsing eating junk food, especially after at Sharon Fitness just hit me to it. But I am endorsing for that 94-year-old. You keep on doing what you're doing, brother.
Yeah, he was actually present at Pearl Harbor, so it's a very interesting narrative that he gives. He was there December 7th, 1941, and he told me he saw the kamikazes come overhead, and he wasn't on the USS Arizona. He was actually, on shore, but he said I think he said it was like 4 or 5 in the morning, and he said I was there. So I hear these very interesting stories. That's also a topic for another podcast.
Okay, so Sharon, is this a good spot to take a break and go into a third part, which is financial social impact on these changes?
I think so. It sounds like a great time to take a break.
Okay, so once again, my guest, Sharon Filiar at Sharon's Fitness, and we are going to go into another fun fitness tip from Sharon Filiar. See you at the end of the break.
Hi, this is Sharon from Sharon's Full Body and Fitness Workout, here with my fitness tip of the day. Hydration. Remember to drink water before, during, and after your workout. Why? Well, when you get dehydrated, this causes a sort of break in your electrolytes and can cause your heart to flutter. This is very, very common if you're even slightly dehydrated. So when you feel a slight flutter, generally when you're working out, this means that you need to drink more water. Of course, if this continues or it's a problem, see your physician immediately. But remember, drink water. Bring a bottle with you to the gym and do this before, during, and after your workout. Well, that's our fitness tip for the day, and I'll see you next time.
And how was that for a Sharon's Fun Fitness Tip? Right now, Nesta Dudley back with Sharon Filiar. And today's topic, living well, getting old, finances, and you. Sharon.
Thank you, Nestor.
Part 3, financial, social impact of these changes. Take it away.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. This really, I hold dear to my heart. This is why I teach so furtively the way I do, because I want people to stay independent. This, in a nutshell, is the link. The healthier you are, the more self-reliant you are, the less money you have to spend, the less hoops you need to jump through to qualify for this program and for that program. So let me just sum it up this way. When I teach class, one of the muscles that we target is called the psoas major. So people might say, well, what's that? The psoas major is a muscle that's in the top part of the thigh and part of the hip flexor that keeps you ambulatory, that is, allows you to walk. When you see people shuffle, they shuffle around, they can't navigate steps, it is due to a shutdown of this muscle and part of this muscle. So when you have a shutdown of the psoas major and you're shuffling, this opens up a Pandora's box of issues that can occur. The first of them is falling. Once you fall, it's not the fall that gets you per se. It's what happens as the result of a fall. You may bang your head, or what they may call comorbidity. You may have a cerebral hematoma as a result of the fall. You may contract pneumonia in the hospital because you were in the hospital due to the skull fracture because of the fall. So by targeting certain muscles in your exercise regimen can extrapolate to saving money staying self-reliant and staying in your house as opposed to going into rehab, long-term care, all these other issues that are, and if you're on Medicare and Medicaid, specifically Medicaid covers long-term disability issues in the elderly. These are waters that are very difficult to navigate if you don't have perhaps a shine counselor, a member of your family who knows the ins and outs of getting into rehab and nursing homes and assisted living, all these things. So that's why I tell people, you don't have to kill yourself in the gym, but there is a link to being fit, to being physically fit and staying financially fit.
I'm just thinking about everything that you said. That's that's very interesting. I mean, I've been in the gym all my life, and most of my life. Be realistic. And up until the past 10 years, I'm like, my attitude is, was I got to kill myself to be in this gym because, because I have certain goals when I go to the gym. Now, I can honestly say that I've never thought about my future years and wellness in terms of 75 years and plus. I'm nowhere near I'm nowhere near 75 years old, but I also know that time flies. One day I will be there.
Yes, it does. Yes. And what's so, so this next portion I'm going to preface once again by saying this is my opinion, this is what I have observed, this is what I have heard. Sometimes with seniors, I've spoken to people and they've had an injury and they've been sent to a rehabilitation facility. From what I understand, before they release you, they test you out. So this is what that means. They have a series of tests that they give you to determine whether or not you are capable of living outside of the rehab facility. One of them is walking. So they'll say, okay, we need for you to walk unassisted the length of this hallway. And if you are unable, they deem that a risk and they will keep you in. So in my classes,
and obviously the longer they keep you in, the more money it's costing you.
Exactly. Okay. So in my classes, I actually give the participants, I give them the top 3 exercises to do that they can do in a wheelchair. I say these are the 3 exercises that you should do if you are incapacitated for longer than 2 days. Now, once again, barring any other higher priority issues. So obviously, if you have a heart arrhythmia, you have heart issues, no, you cannot exercise. Your heart and lungs come first and chronic illnesses. However, if barring those other issues, you are capable of doing, and I give them 3 exercises to do. I say, even if you're seated, when you stand up, even if you shuffle for just a couple of steps, the muscle groups that we target with these 3 exercises, you'll be able to ambulate well enough to be able to be discharged. But it's very interesting because both you and I are nowhere near 75. So these are things that you don't really think about. But staying in shape saves you money. Staying in shape keeps you in your home. And once again, talking to different people, some people, when they go into assisted living, they sign over their home. So say your home is worth $1 million. You sign over the home, and then out of that fund comes the monthly maintenance cost to keep you in the facility. Once that runs out, generally you are switched over to a state-funded facility, or I'm not sure exactly how it works. However, once that money runs out, and obviously you're still living, then basically the house is gone because you signed the house over, and they can shift you to, like, say, a state-run facility that may not be as nice as the private one you were in. So what I tell people is, keep yourself, in pretty much good shape. Stay in your own home. If you need to hire someone to come in and help you, that to me is a better option. once again, barring any serious illnesses where you do need someone to come in or you do need to be in a facility. I'm not talking about those type of people. I'm talking about just generally speaking, if you maintain your health and you're in reasonably good health, you can walk. These are ways that you can kind of save money. You can stay in your own home, and it's very serious. I've spoken to people who say, I'm about to be kicked out, and I say, well, I don't understand. Say, the money ran out from my home. It's over. They're going to kick me out. And they're panicked. So this is what gives me the impetus to teach and to continue to expand my fall prevention program, because there is a real need for people to have something to hold on to where they can maintain their viability, maintain their independence, feel as though that they're being proactive in their health in a great way.
And there's a real need for folks to get the message that you just put out there. I mean, just to think, you retire, excuse me, you're a senior person in need of home care. So you sell your house, or you right up against your house. Your $1 million, the example you use, your $1 million house is gone. So you're in that facility for X amount of time. Now your money runs out, and your money runs out, so they're going to put you in a state-run facility. So just the stress level alone, and we all know that stress affects health. So just the stress level alone from these senior citizens, knowing that their money has run out and they're going to a state-run facility. And then we all know in the political climate that we live in from time to time, certainly the political climate that we're living in now, when you go to a state facility of anything, you're liable for cuts. So once you are out of the private sector in terms of, I sold my home, I'm in this facility that's going to take care of me for until my money runs out. So once your money runs out, then you are really in deep doo-doo.
Well, and also, I'd like to also say, I'm not placing the blame on anyone who works in a state-run facility. Generally, the people who do the day-to-day, these wonderful CNAs and the nurses that tend to these patients, many times they are overloaded with work. I mean, I've heard of cases where one CNA can have 20 patients.
And that's just too much.
It's too much. So what happens is there can be a compromise in care. Now, this has nothing to do with the CNA. He or she is working the best they can in the amount of time that they have, but they have to be able to move through these patients at a certain clip, right? And it's too much. So what I've seen and what I have, once again, this is just my opinion, are that many of the employees are overworked. They don't have enough time, and they're underpaid. So this is a real issue. So this segues back to making fitness a priority. Now, of course, there are certain issues that are just out of our control. You get cancer of the pancreas, whatever, things happen. But I'm talking about trying to be proactive to the point where you're doing everything you can to keep yourself ambulatory, to keep yourself moving, socially active. And the social aspect is also, we'll talk about that. The social aspect is another important component of aging well. Having friends, being happy, going out, laughing, even arguing about politics, anything that keeps you mentally stimulated. The worst thing you can do is stay home, sit at home alone, and watch television all day. The worst thing you can do. Get out, do things. There's a lady at one of the facilities where I teach. She's 94. The woman is always on the move. She's always taking a trip. She's with her girlfriends. They're going out to lunch. They're doing this. And the woman is so happy. A beautiful smile every time I see her. And just wonderful, wonderful quality of life.
Wow. Well, good for that.
It's deep.
It is deep. I was just going to say, good for that 94-year-old woman. This segment I mean, this whole topic that the show we're doing today, living well, getting old, finances, and you.
Mm-hmm.
But so far, topic 3 has been the deepest topic and the topic that's most going to resonate with me well long after this podcast, well after I listened to this podcast multiple times. So
yeah.
Is this a good segue to go into the 4th segment, Sharon?
I think so. And I'd just like to add very quickly.
Okay. Take your time. Take your time.
Okay. The more self-reliant a senior can be, the less stress there is on the immediate family. What happens is it's not just the senior that is affected. It's their children. It's their grandchildren. All the people who love you, if they're worried about your quality of life, they are stressed out. I see it all the time. I've had daughters call me, and they say, "Thank you so much for getting my mother to exercise or my father to exercise," because this alleviates just a tiny bit of stress. Because as children, or grandchildren of seniors, all of us are worried about getting that phone call that something happened, and we have like this low grade of anxiety about that, right? So when someone in your family who's a senior is really taking a proactive role to keep themselves fit, this reduces the stress and the dynamic of the entire family. And I think that's something that people don't kind of think about.
I'm just sitting here with my mouth open, all this knowledge that you're dropping. And again,
I see a lot, Nestor. I see a lot, I'm telling you.
Oh, I'm very thankful that you were able to do this podcast.
Of course, yes.
If there's not anything else that you want to continue with this topic, would it be a good segment to go to the next?
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Okay, we have one more fun fitness tip from @Sharon's Fitness for you, and we'll be right back on the other side of the break.
Hi, this is Sharon from Sharon's Full Body and Fitness Workout, here with my fitness tip of the day. If you're just beginning to lift weights, don't use free weights. Use the machines at your gym. The machines at the gym lock in your form and you're less likely to injure yourself. If you just start lifting free weights and you're not exactly sure what to do, you can really cause more harm than good. Your form has to be exact, your hand positioning, all of that, which is very important. So, to be on the safe side, stick with the machines, take your time, and go at a nice weight that you can handle. So that way you won't injure yourself. Okay, that's our tip for the day, and I'll see you next time.
Back after that fun fitness tip from @Sharon's Fitness. Now on to our 4th and final segment of this podcast, which is living well, getting old, finances, and you. Segment 4, exercise, social, financial strategies to assist in offset of said charges. @Sharon's Fitness, take it away.
Yeah, so this segment is actually going to be a little bit more fun to talk about, hopefully. So remember a little bit earlier in the podcast, we talked about this idea of sarcopenia. So every decade, starting at around 25, 30, we lose between generally 3 to 5% of our skeletal muscle mass each decade. So one of the ways, or actually 3 of the ways to offset it, is to have an exercise regimen including these 3 areas. The first one is flexibility. From my observation, when seniors have difficulty walking, I always tell them your first line of defense is stretching. Many times a person's walking can be compromised because of tight muscles, specifically the quad or the thigh, the hamstring, and a lot of times the calf. Muscle flexibility is the first of 3 areas where a senior should really have a good exercise regimen. The next one is weight-bearing training. Now, this has been talked about in many different forums. Now, you don't have to bench press 500 pounds. However, there's something called Wolff's Law, and this is what it entails. Your bones, or rather your muscles react to the stressors that are placed upon them. So what that means is this: the more stress that your muscles and your bones, Wolff's Law applies to bone mass. The more stress that is applied, or more weight that is applied to the training for your bones, the bones will proliferate. They're called oocytes, to accommodate this new stressor. So let's say you're lifting 5-pound weights, and the first time you do it, you're like, oh, this is so difficult. When you finish the workout, rest a couple of days, and come back, the bones are going to adjust so that they can adjust to this new stressor. So the second one is weight-bearing training. Weight-bearing training, very, very important, particularly if you suffer from osteopenia or osteoporosis. The third is cardiovascular training. This is basically exercising the heart. People who have heart issues and they have to, see a cardiologist, they will give you something called a stress test. And the stress test, where they hook you up with all these electrodes and everything, and they have you start walking on a treadmill. What the cardiologist will do is gradually increase the incline of the treadmill to see how well your heart adjusts to this new stressor. If there is a spike, let's say your heart rate is at 88, and then the cardiologist adjusts the treadmill, he or she sets the incline up higher. If it goes from 88 to 150 very quickly, this is a very, very bad thing. This means your heart is not healthy enough to really have a nice, gentle acclimation to this new stressor, the increase in the incline. What the cardiologist wants to see: 88, 95, 105, 110. You want to see a nice, gentle sloping upward of your respiratory rate. So by doing cardiovascular training, helps your heart to readily adjust to different stressors more readily. So this is why activities like walking, I never advocate running. I think it places too much stress on the joints. Walking is a wonderful exercise. However, you must walk at a clip that forces your heart to work a little bit.
Okay.
The test is this: you should be able to still say a few words. You shouldn't be walking at the pace where you're panting and kind of doubled over, nor should you be walking slow enough to hold a full conversation. You should be walking at a pace that's fast enough where if someone says, "Are you okay?" you can say yes. So I actually use that test in my classes. I'll walk around, and if I see someone and they look as though they're having trouble, I will have them give me a verbal confirmation. I'll say, "Are you okay, Miss So-and-so?" If they say, "Yes, I'm fine," I know they're okay. If someone cannot verbally respond to you, this is a sign that they may be in distress. So just to recap, the three components, this trifecta, that is necessary for a good exercise regimen is 1, flexibility training, 2, weight-bearing training, 3, cardiovascular conditioning.
In terms of walking, Sharon, is there a minimal distance or time that one should walk, or does that really depend on the individual?
Yes, it depends on the individual. It's very interesting. There's a gentleman in my class, he just turned 96. He walks 5 miles a day.
Good for him.
Now his girlfriend is 75. She can't keep up with him. Now, this gentleman has been walking 5 miles for a very long time. So to answer your question, yes, it depends on the person. And what you do is you start incrementally. So what that means is, let's say, you're 75 years old and you never really walk too much. You start by walking a quarter of a mile, maybe 1 lap around the track, and see how you feel. Your heart rate should be elevated. For that, you can go online and look up the ranges for your heart rate, But for 75, taking an educated guess, don't take me at gospel on this, you might want to have your heart rate at about maybe 125, 130. And then you walk the quarter of a mile, and then you rest. And then you come back in a couple of days and see if you can walk a quarter of a mile plus another half a lap. So there's this nice, gentle, like incremental acclimation that should occur. So when you hear about people getting really sick or having a heart attack, generally it'll be someone who'll say, oh, you know what, I'm going to run 10 miles on the treadmill today, and they've never run before. This is very, very dangerous. So that's why the older you get, the more incremental your exercising should be, including walking. So you just kind of see where you sort of fit in, and you can even keep a log of how long you've walked and the distance, and try to do a little bit better each time. But remember, the test is you should still be able to speak and not feel as though you're about to keel over. That's actually a bad thing. if you're kind of doubled over, I think you've done a little bit too much.
and the example of the young gentleman who is 90-something years old and his lady friend is 70-something years old. Is that a case? Is that a case of May-December romance?
I never pry. But this particular gentleman, I tell you, is not the anomaly. I see a growing number of seniors in their 90s and past 100 who are really active. It's very inspiring. But once again, this is incremental. They've been doing this for a while. And then conversely, or rather alternatively, you might have someone who's 65 who, couldn't keep up with the 96-year-old because they never exercised before. So it's very important to listen to your body, So part of my template in my fall prevention class is that I never push anyone, because there's such a spectrum of abilities. I don't know if there's a pre-existing condition. I tell people, do what you can, and then stop. When you come back to the class, see if you can do a little bit more. And because I incorporate that into the template of the class, people feel comfortable coming to class and trying. There's no judgment in my classes. You do what you can, and that's it.
And Sharon, as I'm looking up, we are winding down. We're running out of time.
My goodness.
So this time has certainly flown by, but I have you on the record. You were the first one that said this is time for, or this is a subject for a future podcast. So I have you on the record. Yes, I got you on the record. So I got you on the record saying that you are willing to do future podcasts, and for that I am grateful and thankful.
Yes, and I just like to add one more thing in terms of exercise. One of the other most important points, in addition to the three, flexibility and weight training and all that other stuff, is laughter, having friends, the social aspect of having friends, laughing. Cognitively, this keeps you sharp. And, like I said, I'm not a doctor, but from what I have observed, people who have fun, go out, go on trips, go to the museum, have coffee with their friends, even arguing about politics, this adds to quality of life as well. So it's very, very important to keep those friends close and to keep having fun and keep laughing.
Well, my life is all about having fun. I try to have fun as much as possible, and you know me personally beyond this podcast.
I do.
I'm always laughing.
Yes, very important. It's very important to quality of life. Being happy. Very, very important.
Well, on that happy note, I just want to thank you, Sharon Fillion, for being a guest on this podcast. For our listeners out there, please follow Sharon Fillion. Her Twitter handle @Sharon's Fitness. Once again, her Twitter handle @Sharon's Fitness. This podcast will be available pretty soon. I'm going to tweet it. Sharon's going to retweet it, and Sharon's going to beef up her her Twitter activities.
Yes, I need to do that. I've been so busy, but this is a topic that I'm so happy that you've given a platform to. I love teaching seniors. They're so inspirational. You know, just talking, hearing the stories. There was a gentleman in my class who actually interviewed Dwight Eisenhower. So these are things that, you know, you just don't learn in the history books. And I didn't know Dwight Eisenhower was about 6 feet tall. You know, so hearing these stories from people who were there, in addition to having the opportunity to instruct these wonderful, wonderful people, is really an honor for me.
And again, it's an honor for me to be able to give you this platform to drop some knowledge. And I cannot wait for a future podcast of you being my guest. Sharon Filion.
Thanks, sir. Thank you so much.
At Sharon's Fitness. Before I get out of here, I just want to give a shout out to some podcasters out there that have retweeted my first podcast. I like to call this segment #Podcasters Retweet Shoutouts. Well, first of all, I want to give a shout out to TC Rastani at After Hours TC for retweeting the last podcast. And the next shout out is Nerds with Words at Nerds with Words 1. So shout out and thank you for those two podcasters for retweeting my last podcast. And if you too want a podcasters retweet shout out, for all you podcasters out there, if you find the podcast, retweet it, and I will give you a shout out in the very next episode. Once again, thank you to my guest, Sharon Filion at Sharon's Fitness on Twitter. Find her, follow her. Until next time, just want to say buenas noches, hooches cooches. I came in peace. I leave with love. This is for the red, the black, and the green. Living cool, calm, and clean. I'm out.